Greetings, students, and welcome to this special edition of The Professor Travel Domestic Edition. I am your host, The Professor Travel, coming to you from Orange County, California. This is the website, the vlog, and the podcast that you come to in order to learn more about different travel destinations. This is where we come as a community in order to learn more and discuss more. Hopefully, this will inspire you to travel more and ultimately to enjoy life more. Now, you can reach me on a variety of different social media sites, of course, starting with my website, which is at theprofessortravel.com. On YouTube, on Facebook, and now on TikTok, you can reach me at The Professor Travel. If you're an Instagrammer, you can find me on Instagram at the_professor_travel. If you're a Twitterer, you can find me on Twitter at theprofessortr1. And then finally, if you're a blogger, you can find me on Blogspot at theprofessortravel.blogspot.com. Today, I am very pleased to introduce to you one of our visiting professors. Tony Diles is visiting us from Ohio. How are you, Tony?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coordinating with me. For the benefit of my viewers out there, we had a technical snafu a few months ago. Unfortunately, our previous interview had gotten lost. We are back again trying to record it. So I'm very, very excited that you made the time for me again. So thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Now, for the benefit of my students that are out there, can we maybe know a little bit about some of your credentials, like maybe either a little bit of your educational background or some places that you've traveled before?
Yeah. So I am actually pretty well traveled, not just in the state, but among the other states. I enjoy going places, being outdoors, exploring. Urban exploring is one of my favorite things. Anything about architecture. I'm lucky enough to have a wife who also shares the passion of architecture. We love old houses. We love old intricate buildings where you can look up and see like hand carved woodworkings or concrete. And we go places just to see these things. So much so that we went to a state fair a couple of years ago. And when we got there, it was in this old city, it's Circleville. And we ended up not even spending any time at the fair because we found this neighborhood that we just walked around for 2 hours looking at all the old Victorian style houses that were there. And so, yeah, I've traveled a lot, been through a lot of the different states. I think I've been through almost half of the states now. But on the other side of that, I've done almost a decade of work inside of hospitality and tourism when I worked for Hilton Hotels and also Marriott Hotels. So I've also been on the other side kind of what we expect to receive when we travel places, the customer service, the reception, all of those things that we kind of want outside or what we want from the places that we go. I've been the one to also provide those for people who have come to Ohio. And I've worked in a lot of these different hotels where I've got to experience not just giving those things, but experience the, I would say, the reception of like what people expect from me. And it's kind of a cool dynamic of knowing like when I go somewhere, I expect this kind of service. And when these people came here, they expected that kind of service from me. And so after a decade of doing that, literally up to being a general manager of a hotel, to also going on my first cruise, going out of country the first time, I've got to experience both sides of travel and customer service.
Let me ask you a quick question on that, because that must put you in an awkward situation in some cases, because I would imagine your expectations are pretty high in terms of customer service and hospitality.
It is. It's actually really funny because when Cheyenne and I go places, if we go into a hotel, I'm extremely critical. Like I'm looking at baseboards as soon as I walk in. I'm like, this is gross. That's terrible. This person didn't look at us and smile, because I still have the Hilton brand services built into me, where like they have a thing called the 15-5 rule, where if you were within 15 feet of a person, you were supposed to smile at them. If you were within 5 feet of a person, you're supposed to say hi to them. And it's really funny because I'll be in stores just doing my regular grocery shopping and I still smile at people and I'll still say hi to them. And then there's like, who's this weird dude talking to me? I'm like, I'm sorry. Like it's just ingrained so deep.
That's fantastic though.
I have very high expectations going into hotels.
Now, the picture that we have up on the screen right now is of you and Cheyenne, and there's a cruise ship in the background. I think this was your first cruise, wasn't it?
It was, yes. That is at Princess Keys. And that was the Carnival Sunshine. We left out of Charleston for a Halloween cruise.
Nice. Awesome.
Mhm.
I definitely want to circle back with you on that. But today we're here to talk about Ohio, which is your area of expertise. Now, because I know nothing about Ohio, I don't know about history, I don't know in terms of anything that goes on in Ohio. Maybe you could share with my students and myself a little bit of your knowledge about the state.
Yeah. So for me personally, history is something that I love studying, particularly World War II, which I mean Ohio has ties to, but nothing that we can sit here and really tote on. But history is something that I really enjoy. And so even for just preparing for this, when I got to brush up a little bit on the history of Ohio, I was really surprised still about some of the stuff that I had even forgotten, but just how interesting Ohio really is. And so just to give you a little bit, because obviously I know that we have a select amount of time here. I'll kind of just go through some of the stuff that I find personally interesting about Ohio. It was the 17th state that was founded in 1803, but it actually wasn't written in as a state until 1953. So a good amount of time went by, and it was actually what has been called like a congressional oversight. The congressional ratification of the state's constitution wasn't written in at 1803 for whatever reason. And so in 1953, President Eisenhower wrote it in, and Ohio officially became a state in 1953.
Very cool. I mean, I have the same exact problem with my Netflix, and you get about the subscription for a while, and it's like, then oh, now you have to renew. So there you go. No, I'm just
Yep,
kidding. Go,
that's how it goes.
go
Um,
on.
But Ohio gets its name from the Iroquois Indian word for great river, obviously, with the Ohio River bordering much of the eastern and southern part of the state. It is a massive river. I've personally been to it while it has been in flood stage, and it is a sight to behold. I told Cheyenne when we were down there at Point Pleasant, which is technically West Virginia, but it sits right on the Ohio River. And even just the history there is really cool. Everything from like the Mothman Museum, a Mothman, like just like folklore that goes on down there. It's kind of like a Bigfoot thing, to a bridge collapsing into the river. But there are stories of um, like divers who went into the ocean, or not the ocean, but the river, to like look for survivors and look for cars from these collapsed bridges. They said that they had seen fish that were big enough to swallow them whole, and there are actually divers that are terrified to go into the Ohio River. Like it's huge. And so we get this word from the Iroquois Indians that means great river, and it really is. It's great. It's a mighty river to behold. I told Cheyenne when we were down there visiting it once, I was like, I don't understand how when we were expanding westward, people didn't come to a river like the Ohio River and be like, you know what? I'm done. I'm turning around here. I'm not crossing this thing. It is an amazing thing to see. But with that, with the Indians, we had the Iroquois Indians here. We had the Hopewell Indians here, and it actually in the 1790s led to a lot of struggles between the settlers that came into Ohio and the Indians. Led to three major battles that happened. And it wasn't until 1974 where we had a peace treaty signed between the Indians and the settlers. And even after that, there were a lot of Indians and Native Americans that didn't even agree with the peace treaty. And there were still tensions beyond that. 1833, we have the Ohio Erie Canal, which was a kind of natural man-made water system that was made that connected Lake Erie all the way down to the Ohio River, which, as a lot of people may not know, the Ohio River eventually connects out to the Mississippi. And so essentially you had a way of transporting goods from Lake Erie to the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf.
Hmm.
And so it was a great way for transporting goods, which obviously I think we talk about later, some of the resources that we have here. From 1850 to the 1860s, we have the Underground Railroad. A lot of people, especially nowadays, don't seem to be super familiar with a lot of the even just slave history. When we have the Underground Railroad was like a few, not a few, I mean, there was a lot of hidden places throughout the South coming north where slaves would hide on their way north to escape slavery and escape into freedom. And Ohio is actually has the most active net of underground railroad stops because because we're bordered by Lake Erie at the north. Transport up into Canada was actually really simple, just getting across the water. And so a lot of slaves came up north through Ohio, and you're actually really hard pressed finding even just any cities, like small towns, that doesn't have at least one stop somewhere. Even here where I live in Newark, we're right next to Granville, in a place that I used to work, this place called the Buckson Inn. They have this bar that's in the top of their building that it looks like just a regular liquor bar, but you can actually pull the paneling away, and there's a hidden room back behind the bar that was used to hide slaves, sometimes up to 12 days at a time,
Oh my
just
gosh.
cramped in this little room. And you would never be able to tell just looking at it. It just looks like a bar, but you go back and pull the paneling away, part of the bar slides away, and there's just a hidden room back there. And Ohio's really just covered in a lot of these places. It's really cool.
Hmm.
Even then, our modern history isn't as I don't want to say intense, because it is pretty intense. There's just not as much. 1970s. I'm sure some are probably familiar with Kent State University.
Oh yeah, the
There was
massacre.
the Kent State shootings happened there in 1970. There were four anti-war protesters that were killed by Ohio National Guards. I've been there, and actually in the parking lot, they still have the places where those people were shot and killed marked off in the parking lot. You can see exactly where they died. Um,
Wow.
1978, we have the blizzard of 78. It dropped in some places in Ohio and Columbus over 40 inches of snow
Oh
over the
my
course of
gosh.
several days. Yeah, and a lot of people still talk to it. I talk about it today. Like older people are like, "Man, this is nothing. You should have seen the blizzard of 78." I personally wish I could have seen the blizzard of 78. I love the snow. I love winter. It's my absolute favorite.
40
People
inches
think
of
I'm
it
crazy.
though?
I would be in heaven. I love the snow. Snow is it's winter's the most gorgeous season to me. Snow is beautiful. It's fun to play in. And here's the thing, you can always come inside and get warmed up and go out and do it again. Unfortunately, though, that blizzard did leave over 50 people dead because of power outages and all of that stuff. And then I would think the most significant thing recently would be in 2006. There was a statewide smoking ban put into place where like restaurants and stuff can't smoke inside. You have to actually be like 15 feet away from any entrance door in order to smoke outside and stuff like that. And so there is much more to the history of Ohio, everything from the Indian struggles to exploration to discovery. Like it is an amazing place to check out. There are tons of war forts here. There are tons of museums, tons of just natural rich history here. And it's an amazing place to check out. You're never going to be bored looking at the history of Ohio.
We're gonna have to delve deeper into that at a later time because it sounds like you've done a lot of research on history, and I definitely want to
Mhm.
dig into some of the stuff from World War II at a later time too. But
Yes.
as we continue moving forward, talk to me a little bit about the geography of your state. Like where is it bordering? And I think you border Canada at any point, or is it
Technically, yes, with Lake Erie. But yeah, Ohio has sometimes been called the heart of America, not just because of the shape looking somewhat like a heart, but also because of the placement of being like in the Northeast or in the area of where a person's heart is like considered to be. And so it's been called the heart of America. It is the northeastern part of the country, but it's something that's really weird. It's considered a Midwest state. I don't understand why. We're not in the mid. We're not in the west.
kind of
We're
more than
definitely
north?
northeast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and so it's really weird to me. But we are bordered by Lake Erie, which you can, if you're not careful, you can actually um, move into Canadian waters, and you'll get in a lot of trouble for doing so if you're not careful. On your boats, there are certain islands up there which are gorgeous. There's an island called Kelly's Island that's up there, where you can actually just bike ride all around the island. But from that island, you can see a few Canadian islands that are on the lake as well. And at certain points, you can actually see both American and Canadian like patrols going back and forth and just patrolling the waters. But we are also bordered southern wise, we have Kentucky, we have Indiana, we have West Virginia, we have Pennsylvania. We also have that state up north. Please don't make me say it. It rhymes with Michigan. I call it meat chicken. They're nowhere near as cool as our state. But yeah, we are also bordered by the state up north. And so for being such it seems like a small state, we actually have a lot of states that border us and another country and a lake and a lot of the river as well.
Nice. Very, very cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool. If you go north, you obviously have the lakes. If you go east and south, it's all flat. And if you go southwest, you have the foothills of the Appalachians. And so it's very diverse. You can go from hilly forests to flat, just cornfields within a matter of an hour.
Very cool. Now, you alluded to some of the weather challenges that you guys have had in the past. Obviously, the blizzard of '78 was a huge one. What are some other extreme climates that you guys get? You get thunderstorms as well during the summertime and stuff?
We do. Ohio's weather is insane. Meteorology is also a thing that I love studying, love talking about. Where I live personally, I probably live, if you enjoy weather, that is, I live in the most frustrating part of Ohio. I live directly east of Columbus. And so Columbus itself kind of sits in this valley.
I remember you were telling me about this, that things sometimes just glide over it.
Correct. Well, with the skyscrapers coming up out of the valley in Columbus, storms will hit Columbus and then literally split north and south of where I live, which is in Newark. And we get nothing here sometimes. And it's so frustrating because I'm like, I want to see a thunderstorm and then we'll maybe get 20 minutes of rain. And it's like, this stinks. But we have a saying in Ohio, which is, if you don't like the weather, come back in 10 minutes because it changes so frequently. It's so indecisive. You can go up north along Lake Erie and you'll literally from October until May, you'll get snow. Well before it's winter and sometimes well after it's winter because it's just so cold up there. We get a thing called lake effect snow. And it is when the wind is blowing across the lake, it's creating these weather patterns that as the water itself is warm, the cold air is blowing across it and it's pulling up all of this moisture, which then turns into snow. And then the cities along the lake itself just get tons and tons of snow. We're talking like Cleveland, Erie, Pennsylvania, all of these places sometimes will get over 100+ inches of snow just because of lake effect snow every year.
That boggles my mind. I mean, of course, I live in Southern California, so when we want snow here, we have to get the machines out. But apart from that, it's like, so you get huge amounts of snow, you get thunderstorms, you get flooding. Obviously, I think you alluded to that as well. So I mean, it's just a matter of understanding the weather more at the time of year that you're going in order to be able to kind of accommodate whatever your needs are and what you're traveling for. Correct?
It is, but something that's really cool is where the jet stream always comes. Ohio is basically a bullseye for the jet stream that comes down. I mean, it comes across the entire United States, but it comes in waves. And so most of the time, in all honesty, you could be in Cleveland up north and it's snowing, but you could drive down to Cincinnati on certain times of the year and it'll be 50, 60 degrees. If 4 hours south of you because of the jet stream splitting right over Columbus. And so a lot of the times, like for example, the last snowstorm we had, we were supposed to get 9 inches of snow. We ended up getting 2 inches of rain and that was it because we were right on that border of the jet stream. And so it's really cool. It's very diverse. And there are times you can literally get all 4 seasons in a week. We had a week last year where we went from -5 as a low to 50 degrees the next day. The day after that, it snowed. And then the day after that, it was 70 degrees. Like it is crazy.
Awesome. So let's jump into the culture of your state. Okay. I understand in terms of religion, what do you think is the most predominant religion within your state? I was looking at it and it seemed like obviously Christianity is one of the largest, but there's a variety of different everything from Presbyterian to Episcopalian to Catholic to there's just a variety. Like, what is the what would you say is the breakdown of the religious population within your state?
Yeah, definitely Catholicism, Christianity being the two biggest. You literally And really, it's like this in all of America. We are spoiled, in all honesty, by the amount of churches that we have, especially like where I live. You can't walk probably a mile anywhere without finding 2 or 3 churches. I mean, even our downtown, there's 20 plus churches in our historic downtown. Like they are everywhere. But Catholicism, Christianity, and then the denominations inside of that, where you have like your Methodists, your Lutherans, your Baptists. I mean, they're everywhere. We are so diverse religiously. It's crazy. And we also have large Muslim and Islamic gatherings as well. On top of that, Amish and Mennonite belief systems all over the place. And so really just a melting pot of different religions. It's really cool to see, in all honesty, to see how not only do you have all these different religions, you see them coexisting as well.
Then on top of that, you also have the Native American belief system as well.
Correct.
And then so that blends in with everything else. It's a huge diversity in Ohio, it seems. What about in terms of art? I know you had said you and Cheyenne both are into architecture. Are there any large museums? Are there any points of interest in terms of art within your state that people would want to go to and maybe get a little bit more insight on?
Yeah, in all honesty, you can't escape anywhere in Ohio without seeing art. And it is everywhere. Whether you're in Cincinnati or Cleveland or Columbus, there are museums for everything. They're inside of Columbus itself, which I'm most familiar with Columbus and the art districts there. There is the Columbus Museum Art. There's an art school as well. The Columbus Art. It's the Columbus Art School. I can't remember the exact name for it. But inside of that, there are also there's a place inside of Columbus called the Short North. It's this amazing up and coming like shopping area, kind of boutique shop place that stretches on for about a mile and a half. And when the weather's good during the good seasons, once a month they have a thing called Gallery Hop, where for a stretch of a mile, artists from all over, whether they're literally homeless people to people from out of the country, come and set up their art along the streets. And you can just walk back and forth down the street and see art from all over the place. I actually have, I don't think I have it hung up in here right now, but I bought this this pastel drawing from this homeless man who uses his money to pay for other homeless people to have food, but then also only spends it on his art material. And he'll sit there and he just sketches what he sees. And so he sketched the Short North and doesn't even care about trying to like find a home. He just wants to show his art to the world, and it's gorgeous. And so people just breathe art here, and not just the fine art and the way that you see it as paintings and stuff. I mean, you have your museums, but like there's a lot of bands and a lot of music, a lot of writers that have come from Ohio. And then not even that. And I think, I don't know if a lot of people really consider this too, but Denison University, which I told you about earlier, they're a school of liberal arts. And it's not just fine arts that come from Ohio. And so people who might not be familiar with it, with fine arts, the study of history and literature and writing and philosophy and psychology, renowned people from that, like Pythagoras and Socrates, or some people might know Socrates, Plato, Herodotus, a historian, one of the first historical figures that we know who started actually recording history in Greece. All of these people are part of the liberal arts, and so they also come from Ohio, or not from Ohio, but Ohio is full of that as well, the liberal arts as well as the fine arts.
Yeah, I was saying they come from Greece and
yes,
back in the day. But the first time I remember hearing Socrates was like, even though it's Socrates, it's like I used to watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and that was like where I picked that from. So I know I know where the reference is.
So great.
On the top, moving to the topic of performing arts. You'd brought up and you'd said that there were some music that comes from Ohio. What about as far as actors as well? Any like major actors we may have heard of, or any major bands we would have heard of, or singers?
Yeah, like John Legend. Dean Martin. Marilyn Manson, for those of you who do like Marilyn Manson, Rascal Flatts, even just a few of those people. And then even like actors and actresses that Denison University had like Cameron Diaz, Steve Carell, and then even just sports athletes, because a lot of people do consider that a sport as well. But
They're
obviously, like
celebrities. Yeah.
LeBron James is a big one. Everybody knows who he is, and so like you have a lot of these people. John Legend is another big one. Like it's really funny whenever the Buckeyes do anything, whether it's good or bad, you can always count on John Legend and LeBron James tweeting about it somewhere. And so it's really cool to see that, like, no matter where you go, you're going to hear about Ohio, because
Le-
the people that influence the world really right now talk about Ohio or are from Ohio or have ties in Ohio.
LeBron got a start in the Cleveland Cavaliers, didn't he?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's really cool. If I remember correctly, I don't believe he played college basketball anywhere. He went from playing high school to playing in the NBA.
I believe it. And that's why we have him over here in Southern California now at the Lakers. So sorry to
Yeah,
steal him from you.
it's all right. He's still fun to watch. We'll get him back.
On the topic of language, of course, everybody within the United States, or at least a majority of people, speak English as the primary language here within the United
Yep.
States. Any other, whether it's dialects or other languages that are heavily spoken in Ohio?
I mean, really, it's not unlike any other state. You have a diverse bit of language, whether it's Spanish, whether it's even Arabic. We get a lot of Arabic, obviously, as we have a large Somali population here. Um, excuse me. Something that I think is really cool and unique about Ohio is, which you can say this about a few states, but I think it's more prominently where you say people from northern states sound different than people from the southern states. In Ohio, there's a difference between northern Ohio and southern Ohio, and you can really hear those accents between the two. Whether some people just kind of put it on for show, I don't know, because you can go south, you'll hear some of the most redneck accents south, and you're just like how far south are we right now? Because I'm pretty sure we're still in Ohio. But then you'll get up north and you'll start hearing some of those Canadian, Minnesota accents. And depending on how far northeast, you can even get into some New York accents as well. But
Oh, wow.
Ohio is really diverse with some accents.
Very cool. Now, of course, my favorite topic, because of course I'm a foodie. Let's talk about food.
Mhm.
Now, I put a couple things on the screen here that popped out to me. Obviously, this chocolate covered confection on the left hand side here, it looks like a chocolate peanut butter ball. What is that?
Yeah, so you have the picture of the actual nut there. It's a Buckeye nut.
Ooh.
So in Ohio, we have a Buckeye tree that produces these Buckeye nuts, and you don't want to eat the nut. The nut itself is poisonous.
Yeah.
It can kill you if you eat it. But we do have a candy that is represented in the same shape. It is called a Buckeye Candy, and it is literally peanut butter dipped in chocolate, and that's pretty much it. And it is amazing. They taste wonderful. It's one of my favorite things to eat.
It's one of mine. I went to a conference a couple of years ago over in Columbus, actually. Yeah, or like right where you're at,
Mhm.
and I I pick up a handful of these in order to bring them back over to California. It's like these things are better than Reese's peanut butter cups. I love them. They were fantastic. So
Yep.
again, for anybody who wants to try some, definitely be able to go there and check it
Yeah,
out.
I know that you can, if you want to. There's a candy shop that I was actually named after, Anthony Thomas Candy. I'm pretty sure a lot of people, maybe even globally, know that name. But I was named after them. But you can order Anthony Thomas chocolates online, and if you want to try Buckeyes, they sell Buckeyes. They're not my favorite Buckeyes. I personally like homemade Buckeyes because they're usually softer.
Mm.
But Anthony Thomas Buckeyes are pretty good.
Do people sometimes use like crunchy versus creamy peanut butter in order to create those, or does it really matter? Or
If anybody uses crunchy peanut butter in their Buckeyes, they should be exported out of state. That sounds monstrous. I don't know why somebody would do that to themselves.
you're like, it's
No,
blasphemy.
typically the creamier, the softer the Buckeye, the better it tastes.
Excellent. There's also other like foods that are native to your area. I think sugar pie was one thing that had come up. But I mean, anything else that pops out to you as far as like you really need to get this in Ohio? This is like the prime location for a specific type of food or drink.
So, are you guys familiar with Skyline Chili? Like, is that something you guys have over there?
Never
Or
heard
that
of it.
might just be a northern thing. So chili is a big thing. There's a place called Skyline Chili that started out of Cincinnati. They actually have a grease recipe that came from their family from Greece. They brought it over here and they started this chili chain called Skyline Chili that people will literally fist fight over, thinking that they have the best chili, and it's good. I will say that I am not the best person to ask about food, because I call it simple. Most people call it picky, but look, I think a burger with cheese is much more simple than a burger with lettuce, tomato, onion, pickles, or whatever other crazy stuff you like on there. I'm a very simple eater. I like meat and cheese. That's about it on a burger for me. And so I personally don't like chili. I have had Skyline's chili, and for what it is, it does taste good. I personally just don't like chili. People will literally die for this food. They love Skyline Chili. People will drive all over for it. I'm really surprised that it hasn't been heard that far west, I guess, because it is very popular out here. So if you're ever out this way, Skyline Chili is the way to do it. They have these little hot dogs. They throw their chili on, they throw cheese on, they throw more cheese on, and then you just eat until you're sick. We also have a Columbus style pizza. A lot of people aren't aware of that. It is an extra thin style pizza. There's no crust. You have toppings, meat, cheese, everything all the way to the edge. And it's my favorite style pizza. I love it. It is amazing. We have great burgers here as well. Thurman's Cafe. It's been shown on Man vs. Food a few different times because they have some crazy challenges there. Max and Irma's is another place. You might not have heard of it out there, but it is a great burger place. I personally love burgers, so everywhere I go, I try a burger.
Well, if you ever get out here to California, we have that chain called In-N-Out, which is actually pretty decent, and they're
In-N-Out Burger.
In-N-Out Burger. They're pretty simple, but I mean, everybody goes crazy for them. And I think it's, certain people like regional cuisine, and it's like if you go to the East Coast, they're like, nah, it's all about White Castle. You go down south, and it's like, no, it's about Whataburger. And over here on the West Coast, it's people go crazy for In-N-Out. So I think it just depends,
But it's also really cool because we do have major chains. Like Wendy's started out here in Ohio. Like the original Wendy's is here in Columbus. A lot of people don't know that as well, but that's a food chain that is all over the place now.
We got one here. What about as far as sports teams in your area? You guys have pretty much every major sport in your the Ohio State. Go Buckeyes.
State. Yep, go Buckeyes. Whenever you hear somebody out here scream OH, you're supposed to reply with IO.
IO?
IO. OHIO.
Got it.
Obviously, sports teams goes. We have the Ohio State Buckeyes, both football, basketball, wrestling, baseball. I'm pretty sure we had a wrestler who just went national with Ohio State. I think we actually won a tournament. I can't remember exactly. We're really big on all of those kind of the anything Ohio State is big. And so we watch it. I'll even sit there and watch Ohio State water polo, which again, if you've never watched water polo, give it a try because it is intense. You're talking at a collegiate level, people treading water for 45 minutes at a time. Like we're talking 20-foot depth pools, and it is intense to watch. Total sidetrack from this, but I watched it for the first time with Cheyenne like a few months ago, and I was blown away by it. But Ohio State Buckeyes, obviously, for college sports, you have the Cincinnati Bearcats, you have the Toledo Rockets, who football-wise just actually were nationally ranked last year for the first time, which is really cool because they're a lot smaller of a school. Pro teams, obviously, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, we have the Cleveland Browns. Everybody knows the Browns. You have Baker Mayfield, who I am personally not a Browns fan, but they are so much fun to watch because they're either doing good or they're just punching themselves in the face and just doing terrible. They are so much fun to watch. Baseball teams, we have the Cincinnati Reds. We have formerly the Cleveland Indians. They're going through a name change right now. Columbus Blue Jackets is our hockey team. And then anybody who's familiar with soccer, we have the Columbus Crew, who just won the 2020 MLS Cup.
Wow. Congrats. Very cool.
It's really cool.
I was going to ask you, with respect to Ohio, are you familiar if there are any state-specific holidays in Ohio? I don't think that there are anything, unless there's anything that stands out to you.
Columbus Day used to be a big one, obviously, with having Columbus, Ohio. There were statues of Christopher Columbus. Unfortunately, with the movements that happened during 2020, with just kind of removing a lot of these things, I think Columbus Day might be going away, which I don't want to say is unfortunate, because I know that it is sensitive to a lot of people for what it is. However, it's still our history, good or bad. History happens. It's what makes us who we are, and so I think it should still be recognized for what it is, as history, as turning points that led us to where we are now. Um,
Are
that was
they
really the only
replacing?
big one.
Are they replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day?
Yeah, that's pretty much what they're doing.
Okay.
Is something like that, which is cool. Like do these things, just don't let it be forgotten for what it is. And everyone, no matter who you are, I believe everyone has probably a stain on their history that they're not proud of, but however, it does take us to where we are. And so, but outside of the holidays, that's really about it. You might find a few different places here and there that'll celebrate different things. Like I'm pretty sure that there are people who celebrate LeBron James on a certain day somewhere up north in Youngstown and stuff like that. We have people that, excuse me, will celebrate like John Glenn on a certain day as well. Like anything that has to do with like aviation and maybe even space travel, there's a lot of Ohio ties to that. And so you do have like small things like that are really kind of viewed as holidays. And I'll even go as far to say people will even look at different like festivals as holidays. Like where I come from, we have a thing called the sweet corn festival, and I look at that almost as a holiday because you do it yearly. You go and gather, you're celebrating, and so like it might not be specifically a holiday, but it is something that is celebrated every year.
So you don't necessarily get the day off, but a lot of people congregate to do fairs or parades or things like that.
Correct.
Makes perfect sense. What about as far as population goes? How big is your state? Because I mean, it's especially during election time, it's considered a pretty sizable state.
Yeah, which it blows my mind that a lot of people look at it as being a large state. I think if I remember correctly, it's like the 34th largest state. It's not a big state by any means. We're actually the ninth least diverse state. Like there's not a lot of diversity as far as population goes here. Which is weird to me because I feel like whenever I go places, I don't know if it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind thing, but I feel like you see a good mix of different ethnicities everywhere you go in Ohio.
Mhm.
And so I don't know why, unless I'm just in the wrong place, but I don't know.
Well,
We
you're very
only,
close to a major city, so I mean, it's very possible that you're exposed to that
yeah,
quite a lot.
yeah, there's that as well. But we only have a 15% African American population. Like,
Mm.
and it seems weird to me because I feel like, especially in Columbus, I feel like you predominantly do see African Americans the most, which is I think really cool. I love diversity. I love seeing just differences of people and cultures and how they come together. We have a large Somali population, and I it is so cool interacting with different people. When I worked for the Hilton at Easton, we had people from all over the world coming in, and it was funny because a lot of the times people want to tip you, and I would refuse people's tips and ask them if they had money in their currency that they wouldn't mind parting with. And I actually, for the longest time, I had a huge collection of different world currencies. But some of my favorite things, it was just sitting down and talking to people about where they're from and how like they came to be where they are. And so it's cool to have that diversity. It's cool to have the difference in population because we can learn so much from each other. We have a good mix, as you know, you have it up here on your map. You'll see the red areas there, major cities. Honestly, in between all of those red dots are either cornfields or state forests. We have a good mix of city life. We have a good mix of farm life. You can honestly do both. You can drive 15 minutes out of a city and be in the middle of a cornfield.
That sounds silly, but it's very true considering what you're seeing on the map here. And there are still sizable locations. As you mentioned before, you talked about Columbus, Cleveland, Erie. Um, One thing I don't think you mentioned was Akron as well, and I think Akron's pretty sizable too.
It is.
Um,
I mean, compared to obviously Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, I would say it's kind of a medium-sized city. Um, but I mean, yeah, it is pretty large. I mean, it does show up on your map up there, just under the Cleveland area, the northeastern part there.
yeah. Um, I was going to say if there were any other really big cities that popped out to you that maybe I didn't mention.
You have Athens. It's not super big, but it is it has Ohio University is one of the places that's there, which Ohio University is another school we'll talk about later, but it's just as old. It's really almost the state itself. You have Toledo in the top left there. That's pretty large, which Toledo is a really cool little city. There's a lot of history there that actually the state up north in Ohio actually almost went to war over Toledo and over the resources and stuff there. And it's actually what kind of fuels a lot of the rivalry between Ohio State
and that other state above you. Yeah.
Yeah, the other people.
What about as far as the economy? You've got a lot of different companies that immediately come to mind. Obviously, the Cleveland Clinic is a world-renowned facility.
Yep.
Kroger's is huge. I just really quick, I want to talk about why is it that some people call it the Ohio State versus Ohio State?
I think it's just the renown of the name. When you say something with the, it obviously stands out more so than the. And so I honestly, if there's history behind it, I personally don't know it, but I think, and from what I understand, I think it's just the renown of it and just the respect that name kind of demands when you say the Ohio State.
Got it. And then of course, Macy's, Procter and Gamble, Goodyear, L Brands, which includes Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, Pink.
Mm-hmm.
A place I'm not familiar with is Watson's. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a certain area where Watson's is really from. From where where I've mostly been, I have never really heard of Watson's. So I personally don't know if it's maybe an older place or if it's just mostly south or what. But I've never really heard of Watson's before.
What about any other large companies that you can think of that are just like phenomenally huge within?
Yeah, there's a lot of places. Particularly Columbus, but Ohio has really not just started, but still has quite a few Fortune 500 companies that have either come from or still in Ohio, such as like Cardinal Health. You have Kroger up there, but Marathon Petroleum, Procter and Gamble. You have the P&G there, Nationwide Insurance. A lot of these places are headquartered in Ohio. A lot of places also came from Ohio. Like there's a lot of private places too, such as like, if people are familiar with like NetJets, private aviation place that we have out of Columbus as well. A lot of these places really just, it's really cool when you start to look at where places come from. And when I sit here and I think of Ohio, I'm like, why Ohio? And that's something I would love to figure out. I was like, why Ohio? Like what makes Ohio so wanted? Like why do these people want to be here versus being in Florida or being in California? And so, and I think it's really cool, but we do have those places: Cardinal Health, Kroger, Nationwide, Procter and Gamble. Obviously Ohio State, we are known globally for our groundbreaking cancer research. We have people come from all over the world to Ohio State for their cancer research. Also places like Easton Town Center for our shopping. Easton Town Center, which is about 45 minutes from where I live, it's in Columbus. I think it was in 2010, was the largest outdoor and indoor shopping center in the Northeast, owned by Les Wexner, who was the owner of L Brands. And Easton Town Center was actually originally supposed to be just an expansion of L Brands territory, and it ended up being turned into a shopping center. And now you have places like Huntington Bank and Progressive and all the L Brands stores are all there, and people come from all over the world to shop there. When I worked at the Hilton that was there in Easton Town Center, we had celebrities from all over come there to literally just come shopping at Easton Town Center. I can't tell you how many different celebrities I met because they stayed at the Hilton and wanted to go shopping in and around Easton.
Sounds like a major tourist attraction. I would think that would be very, very cool too.
Mm-hmm.
What about in terms of travel and transportation? How are the roads out there in Ohio?
Well, we have two seasons when it comes to that. It's winter and construction. And so we are always doing construction on our roads. Even just as we're talking right now, we have State Route 71, which goes from Cleveland all the way to Cincinnati and goes right through Columbus. probably one of the most major highways that we have. In Columbus, it's completely shut down at the moment for construction. They have it shut all the way down so they can do whatever they're doing. They're building a lot of overpasses, a lot of ramps. And so lots of construction around here. If I remember correctly, I don't think I wrote this down, but I'm pretty sure that it was 21. I think we have 21 interstate highways.
Wow.
In Ohio. It's a very well-traveled state. I mean, a lot of people coming north, coming east, coming west, a lot of people, you have to go through Ohio. And so a lot of driving through here. And then when you mix that obviously with the Erie Canal, all of our waterways being up on Lake Erie as well, you have a lot of diverse ways of transportation. You can boat, you can drive, I'm pretty sure that there's somebody who last year tried to kayak all the way from Lake Erie all the way down. I don't know if he made it or not. We also obviously have our major airports, whether it's Columbus, Metropolitan Hub, CMH, or Rickenbacker, which is more of like a government airport, which is in Columbus. Up to Dayton, we have the Dayton Air Force base that's up there. Which is Wright Pat. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's actually, it's pretty famous for apparently housing a UFO from Area 51 underneath. And in all seriousness, I had a friend whose mom was a sergeant major there. She was a very high-ranking official. One of the nicest people I have ever met in my entire life, like would literally do anything for you, like a sweetheart. And I asked her one time, I looked at her and I said, "Hey, is it true that there's a spaceship under your base?" Because she worked at Wright Pat, and she looked at me dead on and said, "Don't ever ask me about that again." And it scared the crap out of me. I was like, "Who are you?"
Well then.
But, yeah, it's really cool. So we have that. There's an airport there as well, but Cincinnati, Cleveland all have their own major airport. And then as far as tourism, it's honestly a mosh pot. Like you can literally come here, go camping, you can go boating, you can go RVing, you can go hiking. Part of the Appalachian Trail is not too far from where we are in Ohio. You can go to the museums. Like people come here sometimes to vacation, and I'm like, why? Like go to Florida, go to the Gulf.
Let me ask, are there any amusement parks in your area also?
Yeah. Cedar Point up in Cleveland is well, technically Sandusky, but it's a lot of people just say Cleveland. Probably one of the most famous amusement parks you'll ever hear of. People come from all over to go to Cedar Point. We have Kings Island down near Cincinnati. Down there's also a water park called the Beach Water Park, which is really cool. Up near Akron, actually, we have Kalahari, which is a amazing large indoor water resort. I believe it might be the largest in the Northeast as well. And so, yeah, we have all of these places to go to. We mix that with all the state fairs and stuff, and all the museums. There's at Wright Pat, there's actually an Air Force museum that's there. It's amazing to go. You can go see some of like Orville and Wilbur Wright's earliest airplane inventions. Obviously, Ohio has the name birthplace of aviation because of the Wright brothers being from Ohio and drawing up all of these things. You can go to the Air Force Museum and see some of their original prototypes.
I think my friends in North Carolina are going to have a tug of war with you over the Wright brothers. So
just because they glided for 27 seconds, so whoop-de-doo.
Let's get into the government of your state because it is very diverse. I'm not so sure if it's diverse on the local and state level. Maybe you can educate me on that. For the most part, it does tend to flip back and forth. It sounds like between more liberal principles and more conservative principles. It just depends on who's in office and which way the wind is blowing. It sounds like
it does. And so it's really funny because being somebody who is really part of my church, being a really religious person, it's really funny when you go to places like in churches, it's really hard for people to separate church and state. I feel like if you talk about church, you talk about state. I'm the opposite. I personally try and just stay away from politics as much as possible. I think it just leads to hardly anything good sometimes anymore. Everyone's really opinionated. But when it comes to our government, I do know obviously we have a Republican governor, we have a Republican attorney general, but we do have Democratic senators here. And so it flips back and forth.
Yeah.
As you stated earlier, our government and what we have here is very pivotal when it comes to elections, all of those kind of decisions. It's really back and forth here. But I feel like, in all honesty, from what I have seen, even over just social media, it's really not that different from other states. You have the government doing the government stuff, and you have people unhappy about it no matter what happens. So
It's like someone's got to make a decision around here.
yeah.
What about in terms of the natural resources that are within your area? I mean, I see a lot of fuel sources such as like coal, natural gas, oil, but also
Mhm.
salt is another one that's apparently a big one in Ohio. Any others that
Yep.
I may be missing?
Yeah. So obviously, as you alluded to, we have the salt. A lot of people don't realize we have salt mines under Lake Erie. So a lot of salt coming from there. I think one of them is called Cargill or Cargill. I can't remember. I think it's Cargill salt mine. It's a huge salt mine under Lake Erie. We have the natural gases that we get from southeast. We have the coal mines and stuff like that. It's really cool when you drive through some of the foothills of the Appalachians. You go through some of the towns there, you'll see a lot of these factories that are burning off natural gases at the top, and so you'll see just wide open flames at the top of these factories. It's really cool. A lot of oil.
For kids, that's a little scary. They're like, "Why is that burning over there? I don't understand."
It is. I mean, until you understand what it is, but it is really cool to see. But crop wise, a lot of people don't realize the biggest product we put out crop wise are lima beans. Tons
Really?
of lima beans coming from Ohio, tons of corn as well, lots and lots of corn. But we also have a large steel production up north. We have steel, we have automotive as well. And so that mixed with the coal plants southeast southeast, we're really diverse for a lot of the resources that we put out for what we are.
Nice. What about as far as education goes? Now, I mean, obviously there's the Ohio State University,
Yeah.
but then you also have, Kent State, another really really huge one
Yep.
that's
Kent
been
State
there.
University.
Yeah, I mean,
Denison University. Ohio University, which I said earlier, just as old as the state itself. And then obviously a few other places, like you do have like the Cincinnati University of Cincinnati is what that is. Toledo has its own university, Toledo Rockets. Really, that's about it. I mean, I'm sure there's other ones that
are prominent. Yeah.
garner respect. I personally just don't know them.
What about as far as the literacy rate within your state? How would you say that is compared to the national average?
I don't think we're too far off of par. I'm trying to remember. I know that I, at one point in time, had this written down for our original conversation. I'm trying to remember what I had because I know we weren't too far off of
I wanted to
what the
say it was.
national average is.
I wanted to say it was in the 90 percentile, but it was just a little below the national average, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly. So,
yeah,
I mean,
it wasn't too far off at all.
yeah. And then as far as safety and security, when I think about Ohio, I don't think of any major terrorism issues that happened. I mean, obviously, yeah, you had the shooting in Kent State, but that was more of a
Yep.
police action. Um, do you think of any like either foreign or domestic terrorism threats that come through that you hear on your local news? Anything that's happened within the last several years?
So I mean, a few things that come to mind. One, if people heard about it, there's not so much Ohio, even though they met in Ohio. There was a group of people that were during the pandemic planning on trying to go kidnap the
Oh,
mayor from the state up north. They met in
Governor
a little
Whitmer.
town called Dublin, here in Ohio. I mean, that's not really big. Another big one was actually during 9/11. There was a lot of beliefs that there were a few places in Ohio that were going to be hit because of, some of the stuff that we work on here. Like right by where I live, there's a place called Boeing. I'm sure people are
Oh
familiar
yeah.
with Boeing, but they work specifically on missile guidance systems at this Boeing plant, and it's a lot of top secret stuff there. And it was believed that that place was going to be hit by one of the planes that was actually coming over Ohio. That obviously didn't happen. But when that happened, a lot of the places in our state immediately went on lockdown because of that.
Yeah. It's just really tough.
Hmm.
Well, on that happy note, let's do one other exercise before we wrap up here. Okay, so I have a ticket to go to Ohio. I have a plane ticket to go to Ohio. In about a minute, sell me on why I want to go there.
Why you want to go to Ohio?
Why do I want
Uh,
to go to your state?
well, if you want to experience fall and winter all in the same week, if you want to go to a museum about rock and roll or a museum about football, all the way to an underground railroad museum, to a museum of flight, to hiking and camping and kayaking and boating and luxury and nightlife and just anything that you honestly could desire. You can go either 5 different places all over the United States, or you can come and do all of it in one state and drive all over the place. And the best thing about it is it's never too far away. No matter where you are in Ohio, you can make it to go do one of those things in the same day, and you're never, ever going to have enough.
That is awesome. Tony, thank you again for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot from Ohio, and I know my students will as well. So thank you so much for that. It's very kind of you.
It is my pleasure. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Now, for my students that are out there, if you have any questions or comments, certainly you can feel free to send them to me at scott@theprofessortravel.com. If you are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to click the bell icon right above us to be notified about when new videos go up. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to subscribe. We always appreciate the viewership. If you like this content and you want to see more, click the thumbs up like icon so that way we can know more about that. And then finally, if you're hearing us on the podcast, certainly feel free to rate us. We really appreciate that. So until next time, my name is Scott. I am the Professor Travel, and make every day a travel adventure. Take care, everybody. Bye bye now.